Hello, everyone. It's so beautiful to have you here. Oh, I'm muted. Hi, everyone. It's so wonderful to have you here with us for part 4 of our New Wave series. I have to say that personally, it's been an absolute delight being able to share this with you. I always enjoy the experience of channeling this wisdom because it feels like such a cooperative, co-creative experience. So I get to be with you from all over the world, and it just makes it such a joyous experience for me. I'm sure all of you know who work from an office space in front of a computer, it can feel quite enclosed, and we're having a conversation about space and environment today, but to be able to connect with you and feel you all vibrationally it opens everything up. It's like the world suddenly expands from here. So I see we've got people from all over the world with us again today: Nevada, Florida, WA, Canada. Beautiful. I've got some dear friends here as well. That's so lovely. Washington, Ohio, Oregon, Scott's Head, Indiana, New Hampshire, Georgia, New York, North Queensland, oh, Magnetic Island, Texas, Memphis, love Memphis, Nova Scotia, Perth, Sri Lanka, wow, Arizona, Vancouver, Perth, Santa Barbara, Ontario, Maine, Portugal, Blue Mountains, Toronto and Virginia, and many more, I'm sure. So here I am, I'm in Perth once again with you. Delighted to be sharing this wisdom with you today. Excited to see what we can discover about space and environment. It's interesting how we've gone from looking at the body and our physical experience last week, and we looked at closed system and open system, how this can then apply in a different scale into our space and environment, and perhaps even our planetary experience. So yeah, well, let's dive in. Just a quick reminder before we begin that the recordings will be out tomorrow for you if you have registered to join us live. And we also have our new series, Christos and the Flame of Ra, starting next week. So if that feels resonant to you or you're interested in joining us for that experience, the link will also be in your email to be able to join us. Okay, so amongst all this intense energy of this first week, I'm sure all of you have been feeling it the last few days. Let us dive in and see what it is that we can discover together. Hopefully you can all just see and hear me fine. Greetings to you, blessed ones. We are with you. Everything within your experience, as you have been understanding it, is a fractalization of self. Everything you experience on the smallest scale within the detail of your own genetic experience, right into the design of the universe and the cosmos itself, is, of course, in agreement. And it's important to begin our conversation in this way because humans can often believe that they are one particular system and they exist within another. So the experience of separation and duality you have within your earth reality is normally one that says, well, I can manage this space, but I cannot manage this space. Or I am in a particular frequency, but my environment is a different frequency. So you begin your experience, or indeed you are conditioned to believe that you are in an experience where you are one form existing within another form, existing within another form. And yet, as you become more clear about the nature of your own consciousness, and indeed the nature of reality as an extension of yourself, you begin to realize that you are not existing within an experience of encapsulation, but rather you are one system that is experiencing itself on a multitude of scales. So when we consider you in this way, you can begin to perhaps entertain the possibility that there is no, in actuality, distinction between the system and the environment and the frequency of your consciousness, the system, environment, and frequency of your physical body, and the system, environment, and frequency of the space around you. So when we begin to look at the nature of fractalization, you see that inherently it is the same design, but experienced in new and interesting ways. And so indeed, your earth experience here is the possibility of consciousness that is you, source energy expressing as a unique vibrational signature that is you, now experiencing itself in a multitude of ways. And this is expressed through scale. So when we say to you that you are not your body, or perhaps you have heard the term you are not your body, we would wish to say that your body is, of course, an expression of you. But equally, your space and environment is also an expression of you. And when humans feel disempowered and they feel trapped or they feel limited or frustrated, it is because they have slipped back into a belief that I exist within a system rather than I am the expression that exists as system on multiple scales. So it's difficult for humans to even consider that their expression itself could be a system. You tend to see that you emerge into this reality and into a system. And while that is true to a certain extent, when we look at the depths of your consciousness, if you really want to get to the core majesty of your existence, the system that you experience is ultimately an expression of yourself. It is only the amnesia that humans have in their physical form that allows them to forget. So let us begin our conversation with this notion that your space and your environment is an extension of the system of your own consciousness. It is often a question that humans say to us, how can I affect my environment? Or how can I be affected by my environment? And in this very question, you are already in an assumption of an exchange of energy, that you are one system and you are engaging with another system. The power of sovereignty and your ability to ignite change within your experience and indeed to elevate human consciousness into a new realm of creation is denoted by an understanding that your vibration is the designer of the system, and your expression of this and your knowing of this allows you to express more and in essence, reshape and redesign your reality. There is a very important reset that is occurring at this time for many of you individually and indeed collectively that is assisting you to understand this. There are those that say, well, I am affected by my environment. I feel so much from it, and I feel at odds with it. I feel the effects from the system that I sit within, and I must do certain things to either protect myself or to counteract it. We want to be very clear that in this way, you are subject to your reality, and your reality is not so subject to you. So in other words, the reality has more power. The system you see yourself contained within has more power. And it is very difficult for you to experience yourself as a sovereign creative being. In order to reposition yourself in your view, we offer you a very simple key. And this simple key has been introduced in our previous conversation with you about the body and sense. And we encourage you daily to begin to experience and observe and give yourself permission to feel that your sense actually extends outwards to influence the fabric of reality around you, rather to absorb information and give you knowledge about what already is. In this regard, a daily practice of extending your sense to actually seep into the reality around you is a wonderful reset to put you back into sovereignty. And it is essentially allows you to not be subject to your reality, but to begin to influence it. Because the senses that you have are actually designed to help you to shape reality, to help more of you to extend out in scale, rather than for you to sense what you believe already exists that potentially contains you. So extending yourself outwards in all direction is our encouragement to you on this day. If you could even visualize for a moment that your senses are like tendrils, golden tendrils that move outwards from what you perceive to be the containment of your body and into the fabric of reality, you can begin to experience yourself in an expanded way. When you feel yourself in an expanded way, you are now shaping reality. You are not taking up space. You are now informing space. And as we have discussed previously, an infant is very interested in informing its space. It's unapologetic about its presence. It's not interested in toning down the volume or minding the space of others or being polite in terms of what is expressed. It, in its knowing as a creative essence, is continually influencing and expanding itself out into reality, which is what you are actually designed to do. It is not until the infant is conditioned that it needs to be wary of boundaries. It's taught about the boundaries of its body, the boundaries of the space of others, that it stops influencing reality and it starts to be influenced by reality. So this inversion, this switch can happen very easily for you if you practice daily extending your senses out. Now, it doesn't mean to feel that you can't sense what's out there, but you're more interested in sensing yourself out there. Here are words. You're more interested in experiencing the extension of yourself into the environment. And that is why we say to you that expansion is the new protection. Because if you understand this principle, there is nothing for you to come up against. There is no sense of limitation. Your expansion to see how much of yourself you can feel expanding out into your space and environment immediately sets you in a creation mode where your greatest joy is, how much can I feel of myself in this? And what you notice about that is you begin to move beyond the feeling state of emotion very quickly. And now you're actually feeling the essence of life and vitality. So not only are you beginning to shape and influence the reality around you so that it's in complete accordance with the nature and vibration of your own consciousness, you're now actually experiencing more joy, more relief, more interest, more ignition, and more excitement for life. It's interesting because we had a recent conversation about mitochondria with a dear friend, and we would say that mitochondria and the way in which essence and vitality expresses into your life is palpable and felt within your body the more you expand. So the more you expand, the more sense of vitality you feel. Because now your feeling state of life is not limited to what you believe to be the boundaries of your own individual persona or experience or journey or physical corporeal body. But now your essence of vitality is feeling yourself fractalize and come to life in space, in space, in space. And it's joyous in our view because humans, of course, within this third dimensional reality have experienced and are experiencing bringing multidimensionality into the finite point of third dimensionality, like all of the wisdom and cosmic ink flowing into the nib of a fountain pen. But equally, the shift in human consciousness and the paradigm shift for humanity at this time is while you can bring the totality of your consciousness to this, Simultaneously, you expand out and begin to reshape reality. Because why are you here to create if you cannot create beyond yourself? Interesting. The great challenge for humans, of course, with space and environment is in the understanding that there is a space environment and you come into it and you are subject to it, is that from there arises issues of containment, and from issues of containment arises a new desire to control and to control your environment. It begins, of course, with controlling the environment for an infant, and then eventually wanting to control the body, and then eventually wanting to control the emotions, and then wanting to control the mind, and then wanting to control the spiritual practice. And you can see how that has evolved in your sense of focus. It's interesting because the more conscious you have become, perhaps in your spiritual inquiry, you have moved your experience along your own personal pathway from wanting to control things around you to now wanting to control what's in you. However, you arrive at a point where you are invited to extend outwards again, which is why you are here with us on this day, because you begin to realize that the greatest sense of freedom that you can experience is not through the control within you. It is through the expanded expression of yourself that ultimately begins to shape and control in your view, your reality. However, in an expanded state, there is no sense of control. Hear our words. In an expanded state, there is no sense of control. Because when you expand, what happens? When you expand in multiple directions. Agree? Not towards a particular goal, not towards a particular outcome, but in all directions. It is sense-driven. And when it is sense-driven, it is exploratory and curious. It's not interested in a goal. It's pioneering. It's experimental and experiential. So when it's sense-driven and you move outwards, not only are you moving in every direction possible, you no longer feel that there's anything for you to fight against. It now becomes a curiosity and exploration. So when you begin to expand outwards, there's no sense of containment nor friction. This is why when you begin to expand within your meditative practices, you feel a sense of freedom. Initially for humans, and we've watched this many times, when they first begin to expand their sense, they come up against the containment of their own body, but this is only coming up against an idea of a containment of your body. And that is where the limitation is. And when you try again, it moves further out and further out and further out and further out. When you are engaging in this practice, blessed ones, you are in essence reshaping the reality you find yourself in. It's a very, very simple practice. So many humans who have become sensitive with their bodies and their senses will say to us, well, when I extend out, I feel things I don't want to feel. Or perhaps I'm feeling the collective experience at this time and it feels very dense. Just ask this one. They are feeling very fatigued this week and the body is tired and they are feeling a sense of anxiety, as many of you are this week. And so as we would say to them, we also say to you, that is an opportunity for you to remind yourself that what you are sensing is not to bring feedback back to you so that you are affected. Sensing is your opportunity to recognize something and then move beyond it. Just as we suggested in our very first conversation with you about moving beyond the boundaries of third dimensionality. And we will demonstrate this for you once more. So if you recall, in our first conversation, you have been existing within this bandwidth, within this spectrum, where when you expand out into your space, you feel something, you sense something. There are metaphysicians and those that say, well, everything we sense is a reflection of ourselves. And that indeed is the experience within this limited sense of reality. So you come out and you extend and you hit a limit. And the information that you receive in the reflection, whether it be of you or of the collective, it matters not, it then is brought back to you and it oscillates back and forth. This is how effect is created. Effect is not created just through a sensing and a receiving. The effect is felt physically and emotionally when it continually moves back and forth, continually. So the more you expand beyond that and have the courage and boldness to say, well, I sense something, it's that reflection of the collective or the individual experience in the mirror, and I'm feeling affected by it. That's your challenge to now consciously begin to expand your senses beyond it and actually move beyond the mirror. So in this way, you could be saying, well, I am sensing anxiety, but what else is there beyond that? Let us expand our senses beyond that, because what you're doing is you're training and practicing with your nervous system and your sensorial capacity to now actually begin to sense out here. And this is very important, because when you begin to expand and sense out here, not only are you now beginning to create in this spectrum where everything becomes much easier and there is acceleration and amplification of the effect of your presence, but you're now no longer in the feedback loop of being affected by whatever you've experienced here. So in other words, you move beyond the containment of the mirror effect, and now you begin to both sense freedom and expansion, and you also begin to create in here. This is the creation zone. So this is very important, because in order to move into the creation zone, invariably, you're going to come up against a little bit of discomfort. And this is where many get hypersensitive and they say, well, this discomfort is affecting me so much. What do I need to do to remedy it? And back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth they go. Rather than, oh, I can sense limitation here, but I know that it is a reflection of the collective consciousness, and I'm just going to extend myself beyond that now. Experiment, blessed ones. Is it true? Is there open space past this? It's like coming up against a fence around a field, sensing that there's something beyond it, but coming up against the fence and saying, no, this is the limit. You know better. So it is a time to actually extend your senses and move beyond what you believe the limitation of what you can feel is. Ultimately, when you begin to move beyond the containment of that mirror zone of third, fourth dimensional paradigm, at first it feels as if you can't feel anything because you're so used to being in a feedback loop. So you can go into space and you can say, I'm not really picking anything up. I can't really feel anything. It's neutral. Perhaps I've lost my ability to sense and feel. And it's very interesting because we hear this so often from energetic practitioners or those who are very sensitive vibrationally. When they begin to move beyond the third, fourth dimensional paradigm with their senses, they move into what feels like empty space, and all they can feel is themselves. But because they're not used to feeling themselves or noticing the importance of feeling yourself, self-awareness, self-realization, what happens is you feel like you can't feel anything at all. There must be something wrong with me. I've lost my capacity. How many times have we heard this? Of course, because now you're moving beyond containment and there's no feedback. So you feel like you can't feel anything because everything that you've been sensing in third and fourth dimensional reality has been feedback. If all you are sensing is feedback, you have no sense of your own vibration. You have no sense of self. You're dealing with an echo, so you can never truly know what it feels like to be you. You can never feel the potency of yourself in a feedback loop. Because don't forget, there's the collective conscious experience in there also. So you might be feeling wonderful and you express out and you go outside and you feel anxiety. Because you are subject to that collective experience that's also sitting in the mirror. Difficult to feel yourself amongst billions that are participating within a collective experience, agree? No wonder humans feel like they are lost. So of course, once you begin to move beyond the containment of third, fourth dimensional reality into fifth dimensional spectrum, at first you don't feel anything because there's nothing for you to push back against. There's no echo, there's no feedback. So for many of you, as you begin to emerge in this way, you will find that others perhaps can't see you or sense you, or perhaps you're trying new things and you're not getting the feedback that it's working, or you're not seeing effect. And that's because as you move out there, first of all, there's not so much there to give you feedback. You might find some other resonant beings like yourself that are there, and that's when you discover new connections and new interests. But the most important thing to look for or to sense or to pay attention to once you move into that new emptiness or that new sense of space is, what do I feel like in this? Because if you can be clear about what your own vibration feels like, not only is that the beginning of self-realization, but now that you have the wisdom to be aware that I create from the vibration that is me, you can sense what it feels like to be you. And now you can actually begin to extend that out from yourself consciously and to begin to create with that rather than the mind. And what do we mean by this? Sense and vibration will always precede thought. So if you extend yourself in this way and you can feel your own vibration, the mind then begins to give you appropriate overlays of concept, idea, and translation to suit what it is that you are sensing. And if you are sensing your own vibration, because there's no feedback loop, you are beginning to access the source, cosmic source, wisdom energy within you, which means that you now have access to everything. And your mind now begins to express and interpret that which is within you. Because since you were a young child, you've been taught, direct your mind out here and translate, understand, and be informed by the reflection. By the reflection. Interesting, isn't it? This is where you discover what sovereignty really is, because it is not, in our view, helpful for humans to continue to exist in a student-teacher paradigm. It's helpful for you to discover the sound of your own vibration so that you can begin to access all that you are, and so that your mind and your nervous system is now redirected back to self-realization so that you can bring that into the world. Ye are indeed living gods, because you are here to create new worlds. When there are many of you practicing your experience in this way and expressing in this way, there is collective agreement for this new way for humanity, and there is a new world that is formed collectively. Because within that mirror experience, yes, you are subject to the collective human experience, but you're not creating collectively. And that's why you feel as if your experiences and your journeys are so individualized. Interesting, isn't it? So when you consider space and environment, and the question is often, well, how do we save the planet? How can we change what's happening politically? How can we change what's happening with the environment? We want to be very clear that you are not looking at a reflection in the mirror of a collective consciousness. Because what you discover, and many have spoken about and alluded to, a new earth reality, perhaps a fifth dimensional spectrum of existence where everything is working in harmony and balance, and perhaps there is no environmental disaster, and perhaps there are no overzealous systems of control and containment. All of that exists and is possible beyond that mirror spectrum of third and fourth dimensional reality. It already exists. The question is, where are your senses? What are you sensing? What are you seeing? What are you paying attention to? Because anything that you begin to see that feels disruptive to you, or feels like a tragedy to you, or feels negative to you, for example, humans like to use that word negative out of context in our view. However, anything that you feel is in friction or abrasive to you or not in resonance to you, understand you're looking at a collective mirror of memory. And that is your invitation not to try and solve the problem of the reflection in the mirror, or not to try and solve the problem of what you are sensing in that collective state, but rather that's the invitation to have a clear sense of self, extend your senses beyond the mirror and begin to feel and experience what's in that spectrum of reality. Because the mass migration of human awareness from third, fourth dimensional reality into a greater bandwidth of fifth dimensional reality is what will populate the new earth reality. That's the migration. It's a migration of awareness from within the containment of the mirror effect beyond it. So herein lies your daily challenge. How will you challenge yourself when you feel sensitivity to a reflection, when you feel that something is not resonant to you? Will you contain yourself? Will you shy away from it? Or will you take the challenge and actually extend your senses through it into the open space beyond it? Because that is where the newness is, and that is where you would wish to be, because humans, of course, feel contained. They feel contained by their psyche, contained by their genetic history, contained by your bodies, contained by your nations, contained by your planet. But of course, there is an invitation in every moment of your experience to feel more and sense and expand your capacity beyond what you feel you are coming up against. That's why you are the rebellion. You're not here necessarily to convince anyone else that it's all a mirror and an illusion. You're here to give yourself the experience of moving beyond it, and in essence, begin to experience the glory of your own existence. How beautiful for you to feel what it feels like to be you. Up until now, what you have sensed in your space and environment has not felt like you. You have been in an experience where the belief is what you sense beyond yourself is not of yourself. What you sense beyond yourself is something else. Even with your body, there is this body. It's something else other than what I am. But of course, that's not true. So, of course, re-evolution, yes, it's expansion of your own consciousness. Now, how is it that you can begin to experience this more on a daily basis? Well, of course, you begin with the challenge, as we have suggested, of extending out beyond discomfort. Where there is discomfort, resist. The reflexive survival-driven action to contract. And in the face of discomfort, expand, because that's what all great masters and mystics do. They do the opposite. Remember, you live in an inverted reality in this mirror state. Always do the opposite of what you believe is sensible, perhaps. That's being a rebellion. That's being a rebellion. So when you consider boundaries with each other, boundaries with space, do you seek to create boundaries to protect yourself? Do you seek to create boundaries to protect others? Or are you now willing to expand beyond that? Now, the challenge with this for many, of course, is that you believe if you expand yourself beyond limitation and you expand beyond perceived boundaries you may have for yourself or others, that it will leave you in a very vulnerable position or others in a vulnerable position. Well, vulnerability for what? Vulnerability for visibility? Vulnerability for exposure to danger? exposure to belief, exposure to more reflection. Because as we have just illustrated to you in our diagram, if you begin to expand yourself out, your senses and all your attention are actually going to be beyond third dimensional reality, which means that in essence, it renders you beyond the effects. It also means that you only in essence are feeling or sensing others who are in a similar vibration to you. So if you want to know how to get out of this reality, it's very simple. You can do it in any moment. It's not about getting out of it. It's about expanding beyond it. The invitation is there, blessed ones. It's all waiting for you. But humans don't know how to do it because so much of your mirror reality is encouraging you to bunker down, reinforce. Reinforce. Interesting. So protection, in our view, is not relevant. When you move into a state of self-realization, you become completely enamored with the feeling of yourself. What does it feel like to be me? Yes, from victim to creator. What does it feel like to be me? What is the essence of my own vibration? How do you sense that? One way to sense it is to actually take moments to actually feel your skin, to actually sense your skin, because the skin is the interface between your multidimensional self and this reality. And so even just touching your skin and taking a moment to feel what it feels like to sense yourself physically suddenly switches you into an expansive mode. To actually listen to the sound of your own voice. How challenging is it for you to listen to the sound of your own voice while you're speaking? Because what the mind does is it's already thinking ahead to the next, to the next, to the next. You're not actually sensing the vibration of your own voice within your body. That's an act of self-realization. So the more that you move beyond the limitation of the echo effect of sense, and you move into the empty space beyond it, in the beginning, all there is to feel is yourself. So whatever you feel in that sense of freedom, if you're feeling, oh, I feel free, that's your sense of self. Oh, I feel disoriented, that's your sense of self. Oh, I feel like there's nothing out here, that's your sense of self. Oh, I feel light, that's your sense of self. So you're becoming self-realized and self-aware. As you are in a moment of self-realization or self-awareness or self-acknowledgement, or yes, I exist. Yes, I exist. Oh, I can feel myself for the first time. Oh, this is what it feels like. This is what my energy feels like. In that moment, you are in a moment of creation, and your reality begins to reshape itself in accordance to your own vibration. So you become a master of your own universe in that moment. The challenge, of course, for humanity in this transitory period is to move between those two states. And it can be rather cumbersome to be out in this sense of, I feel completely at ease with myself. I'm curious, I'm interested. There's all this space and freedom, and I'm back in the apparent containment of third, fourth dimensional reality. It's important to be gentle with yourself. You're going to want to sleep more, but in small moments. Disrupted sleep during the night, very likely. Wanting to rest during the day, very likely. Because as you move from the containment and out into the space and back again, the body takes time to adjust. Remember, all of the body's knowledge about itself has been informed about an effect within a third, fourth dimensional paradigm, and largely been informed by collective human experience. And as you know, collective human experience is full of perceived experiences of trauma, death, violence, and so on. So the body, when it senses change, immediately thinks there's going to be a death. Change is death. Change is death. Isn't that interesting? Change is death. That's been the collective belief. That's why so many of you desire change and thirst for change, but there's often resistance within the body, or resistance within the emotions, or resistance within the collective human experience and the perceived systems around you. Very interesting. So when it comes to your own space, let us say within your homes, within your families, within your working environments, within your nation, be very aware that it's not about how you can affect what you are sensing within that. Because if you're trying to create an effect with what you already sense there, trying to push up against it, trying to control what's happening because you don't agree with it, trying to change the frequency of it because it feels uncomfortable to you, or you feel it's not enough for the evolution of human consciousness. Just be aware that, yes, you can create an echo of effect within that realm. It's true. You all have experiences of sensing something you don't like or agree with, and then doing something about it. But what you find is that it's much like an echo. You have an effect, and then after a while, it's not sustainable. Or it does something in the beginning and then it doesn't. Or even it can be very difficult for what you are expressing to become evident within the reflection. Just be aware that when you have moments where you are expressing and moving beyond what you see is a discomfort or a disruption to you, you are now creating an alternative space, an alternative arrangement, an alternative frequency. So it's transmuting. It doesn't necessarily come into view within the third, fourth dimensional spectrum of reality, but it's being seeded and created in the fifth dimensional reality. The more you can extend your sense through the mirror and into that, that's what you get to experience. Interesting, isn't it? So you can still create, but it's very unlikely you're going to be creating within that same bandwidth. So, blessed ones, if you can begin to see your space and environment as an extension of yourself, you will begin to give yourself permission to extend your senses and awareness out into it and not be tempted to contract or to keep to yourself or to protect your energy necessarily, but rather to move beyond containment. And that is why we say to you, expansion is your greatest protection. Challenging perhaps, because there are many of you that practice containment. I must surround myself and protect myself. And indeed, of course, there are instances where that's the reflex. And if that's the state you're in and you're not present enough because you're already anxious and you're already in the state of, I must take control of this, it's going to be difficult for you to expand your senses outwards. So by all means. However, there is an alternative that also enables you to create real change and to actually be able to move beyond being subject to your environment. And that is what we would wish for you. We would wish for humanity not to see itself as a victim to its reality or subject to its reality. We would wish to see humanity expanded beyond the containment of history and programmed belief and elevated once again into the creatorship and the custodianship of this planet. Because there are humans that will say, well, we really shouldn't be in charge of this planet. We shouldn't really even be here. But let us say this to you, custodianship of your planet has already been awarded to humanity. And it was awarded to humanity many eons ago. And upon the fall of Atlantis, it was reassigned once again to the Arcturians. And what we want to say is that in 2011, 2012, in your linear time, It was reassigned back to humanity. So please be aware, blessed ones. Be aware that you are powerful, you are creator, you are inherently of source. And it's safe for you to trust in yourselves and trust in humanity, because there are many other beings that do. And if not you, then who will it be? So trust yourselves. This is what you are here for. To move once again back into coherence and to experience Earth not as an encapsulated closed system as such that it has appeared to become, but rather to open it once again into the glory of its galactic collective experience. To open. And so in order to open, blessed ones, extend your senses and your focus beyond the containment of the mirror effect. And once again, expand humanity back into the bosom of the cosmos. Blessed ones, it is our delight to be with you in this way. Peace be with you. Well, I did not expect it to go in that direction today, but then again, I rarely do. I really know where it's going to go. I just had with my human mind, I thought it was going to be an entirely different conversation to that, but there we go. Expect the unexpected. Thank you so much, everyone. I mean, the caliber and the content of this conversation happens because of your consciousness here. It doesn't happen without you. So thank you so much for joining me. Thank you for holding the space and being the crucible for this wisdom to unfold. I feel so grateful and so privileged. And I'm excited from hearing this content. What a wonderful opportunity we've got now to expand into the space beyond appearance. So thanks again for joining me for this series. It's the first time I've done a series like this with you, and I hope to do more. You may also wish to explore membership with us. We do webinars like this actually every month. We've got one coming up next week where there's lots of question and answer going on as well. So thanks again for joining us. I look forward to exploring more with you. And how beautiful that we've been able to connect in this way from all around our beautiful Gaia. So I hope you all have a beautiful day. I hope you can allow yourselves to extend beyond the intensity of this week, because it's pretty intense right now. And may you enjoy the discovery of your own vibration. Thanks so much, everyone. See you soon.